So welcome everybody. Lovely to see you all. I can only guess why you turn up, you lot. My guess is, here's my guess. I'm going to guess. I'm guessing that you think I've got nothing and I've got nothing to give you. I haven't. I haven't. No one gets nothing. No one has nothing. Of course they don't. It's nothing. And you go away from the meeting. Here's my prediction. I'm a soothsayer now. Here's my prediction. At the end of the meeting, you go away from the meeting and went, I didn't get it. So you go away from the meeting getting nothing and then say you haven't got it. Now, I like it that you turn up. Otherwise, I just sit and talk to Darren for an hour, which is great, which would be fine. But there's every chance that you'd turn up even if you did get nothing. Because if you get nothing, you won't know you've got it. Of course you won't. What the fuck would it look like? What would nothing, when you gain nothing, how on earth would you know? So here's the dilemma. If you do achieve this wonder that is nothing, you won't have the first idea. You will not notice. You wouldn't have any clue. There won't be any clues. If nothing is revealed. That's it. There is no revelation of nothing. Of course not. There is nothing to be revealed. Thank you and good night. So, yeah. And so it can feel like waiting. I remember waiting. And I remember the frustration of waiting because I'm not very good in a queue. I'm not good at, I'm shit at waiting. If I go to the supermarket and there's no free, because I can't do the self-checkout because I still need some anger management when I do the self-checkout. It drives me insane. So if there's no free, there's no free tills for me to go to, I won't queue. I just put my basket down and walk out. Waiting's not my game. But if you're waiting for nothing, which is what we're speaking of, then of course there is no end to that. you can wait forever for nothing to arrive. And it won't arrive. I'm going to guess something else. I'm going to also guess you look at those who speak about this, or you listen to those who speak about this, with still with some kind of envy. There's nothing to be envied. No one has more or less of nothing. Really. I mean, that's the freedom and the unconditional love, that this is unattainable. And that's an absolute full stop. There is no attainment. This is already absolutely, completely, and utterly as it is. With waiting, with doubt, with questions, with self, without self, any story, all the stories, all of them are completely empty. All of them are completely worthless, beautifully worthless. This is the annihilation of whatever you fantasized life could be, because there is no life that could be. There is only life that is and isn't. It is exactly as it appears to be. There is no other way. There's no way that this could possibly be different. There are no possibilities. All possibilities are impossible. It's undeniable. With all denial, you can deny as much as you want. That's undeniable. All the what ifs, or what about, oh yeah, that's all very well, you saying that, Tim, but what about, yeah, that as well. Yeah, that too. There's nothing excluded. There's no possibility of exclusion. Just stories. There's plenty of stories of exclusion, but they're included. Whatever you think is not present, that's included. So whatever escape plans you still, you've shelved most of your escape plans, I'm guessing again. But whatever escape plans you still, self will hang on for dear life to whatever it imagines could still happen. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing is ever going to happen. Just what's happening. And that's all there is. And even what's happening is only what seems to be happening. There's nothing happening seeming to happen. So this, the seeking nothing is the ultimate joke for seekers. Seekers usually seek things for a long time, and then the dissatisfaction with all the things that have been sought, some attained, some not, but they haven't been fulfilling. No, there is no possibility of fulfillment. That's why they're not fulfilling. This is empty. There's no possibility of fulfillment. That's the whole fantasy of self, that I'm not complete and I could become completed. Well, there is no becoming. There's no one to become, and there's nothing to become. This doesn't become. We just tell ourselves and each other stories of becoming. That's the only becoming there is. This is always complete. This is always the end. This is final. So we have these stories of beginnings and endings, when the beginning is the ending and the ending is the beginning. And then there's nowhere to go. There's no more traveling. You still have the story of the journey of how you got here. And you can still have the fantasy of the journey that you could make away from here. But they're just obviously that. A story of how you got here and a story of where you might go. And they appear or not. So it might seem very negative. I mean, self puts so much store by dreams, the annihilation of dreams, because dreams don't come true. Only in the dream. Might sound negative, but it's not negative. It's actually isn't totally neutral. It's neither good nor bad. It's not positive or negative. All of that, all of those are just more stories. And what does positive and negative mean? It just means good for me or bad for me. I mean, at least admit that. So this does annihilate all notions of right and wrong, good and evil. All moral, all moralizing, all ethics are seen for what they are, which is stories made up by self to make self feel righteous. And being a good boy or a good girl, as we were heavily conditioned to do, is a most dreadful curse. Terrible, quite awful. And at 61, still trying to be a good boy to keep your dead mother happy and your dead father happy. For fuck's sake. Really? They don't mind. Honestly, how could they? Amoral's not so bad. We were taught that amoral was probably the biggest sin of all. At least, you know, if you're immoral, then you can repent of your sins. I'm talking Christian here. That's my upbringing. At least you could repent, you know, and then do some good. And I know so many people who still feel that, you know, especially when you've retired or you've got time on your hands, at least you should be doing something for the community, for the good of others, something fucking righteous. Get off your lazy ass and do something useful and worthwhile. Sure, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it's not more noble. This I don't give you many positives of this, but it is good to not need to be good. That's really good. And perversely, you probably are a better human being for not trying to be good. How funny is that? More compassionate, more caring, more loving, without the fear of not being. Naturally. I don't doubt that there are some shit human beings who are naturally horrible, but most of us just torture ourselves that we're not good enough. I mean, that's the norm. That's virtually everyone I know. And it's not that you're not good enough. It's not that you're not good enough or good enough. It's that there is no good enough. That's the freedom. Freedom from not being good enough or being good enough. There's just being exactly as what you've called yourself, as you are. You're not. It's just being as is. Too simple. Well, thanks for being here. Feel free to ask anything or share anything if you'd like to.
Shara has a hand up.
Is that?
Did I say that right?
No, it's Kira.
Kira.
Yeah, I'm not special. That's right. It's just. So my question is, Tim, as you were making your journey to this point where you're sitting in front of us, did you feel disorientated?
Did I feel what?
Disorientated.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Because I have this sense now of actually nearly feel like travel sick. I feel nausea,
Oh yeah.
just like there's no solid ground underneath my feet. So there's
Yeah.
what's happening? Where am I in space? I don't know life anymore as I did. But
No.
I flick between the two of being in this
Right.
nothing, like being the invisible man,
Right. Yeah.
seeing my hands like they're coming out of nowhere, nearly.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I don't know whether you know what I mean. And then back into being a little tiny human wanting things and needing things and
Yeah.
grasping for things,
Hmm.
looking in and out of the two really quickly. And I actually can sense in my stomach down there some nausea. Ugh, oh, I don't know where I am.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not surprised at that. I don't remember feeling. Yeah, I do remember feeling sick. Actually, now I think about it. But when you say about there's no ground, the groundless. I mean that's very. I remember that well.
Mm,
And it's not, and it still is groundless. So all I would say is just like traveling, you can get used to it.
mhm.
It
That's what I
seems.
wondered.
It
Yeah,
seems like the body gets used to that.
yeah,
And I will say, the going in and out, there is really no going in and out. But and again, I know that's very familiar as well. And most people I've ever spoken to, there's Tony always called it meing and being, which I never
yeah.
liked because, of course, there isn't any,
Mm,
really is no difference. So this whole notion that there is a shift, while there's still the illusion of coming back, which is
mm,
coming back to having my feet back on the ground.
mm.
Uh, but really, there isn't a me to come back and disappear and come back and disappear. But I know that that's quite familiar.
Mm.
And a
Is
lot
it
of,
going from silence to noise? Silence, noise,
right.
space,
Mm-hmm.
noise.
Yeah, and really, of course, the noise and the silence. So that's I mean, the whole
Yeah,
thing is that the noise is completely silent. It's the silent. You can't hear the silence. You only hear the noise.
yeah. Only notice coming back, coming into noise or noticing noise.
But then what me does then is say, so the whole illusion is that me comes back and says, okay, so I'm back in, I hear the noise again, and so I've left.
Mm.
I'm back as me, so I've left the silence. The silence can't leave.
I know. Yeah, it's like there's a blanket
The,
that the noise is
the
happening in.
yeah, the silence is all the noise is silent.
Mm. So this is why I'm here. You said at the start, everybody's here to get nothing, and it's really to know that there are other people who are feeling seasick.
Yeah,
And
I
how are you
know.
managing your seasickness?
Yeah, that's a lot of the motivation to keep doing these meetings is because I know there's. I mean, where do you go to be with others, and you just go, oh, it's thank fuck, it's not just me.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I felt so alone when this was seeming to happen, um, and all the disorientation. It was more than disorientation. That's underplaying it a bit.
Mm,
For me, it was devastating. But devastating at times, and then sometimes just sometimes it was mild, sometimes it was severe, sometimes very debilitating. So I didn't feel I could function.
mm.
I mean, it's hard for self to function when it feels it can't put its feet on the ground. Shit, it's hard to get out of bed physically. It
Yeah,
can feel like that, I'm sure.
yeah. That panicky, there's definitely a panicky feeling. Oh, well, then what's the point? Like definitely there's a kind of a, well, what's the point? Like luckily I have kids. I have to get out of bed. There's a lot of doing involved.
Yes.
So it's very well, it definitely keeps me in one version of reality.
Well, I think the kids will still keep getting you up. Don't worry about it.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Yeah.
I do think that with quite a few people, when you have what we'd call, you know, self-responsibilities, I mean, they're not going to disappear. I mean, you don't, the whole illusion is that you're the one who is responsible. So self is responsible. So self panics about, oh, without self, then I'll be completely irresponsible. I mean, it's just another scare story told by self to keep it real. You've never done anything. So if the human being known as Kira McEwen is responsible and a decent parent, then with or without a self, it will be pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Because I know self can tell all kinds of horror stories and scare stories. And of course, they're very effective in keeping self real. You know,
Mhm.
keep me in a job.
Yeah.
Keep me in line.
Keep me in a routine. Keep me
Yeah.
safe. Give me structure. I know
It's
what I'm
all,
doing.
because self is very afraid of the anarchy and the pointless. You said about pointless, the pointlessness. But again, pointlessness is nothing to fear at all. Self's terrified of it, but with it's only self that needs a point. Life is absolutely pointless. And it's massively liberating. And then all the points can still appears, still exists. You know, the point is I need to get up and take the kids to school. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, you don't need you for that.
Mm.
It's amazing. It is incredible, I know, because self.
Well, it shifted the whole experience of parenting because so much silence has come into it, so much space,
Yeah.
and even the cats are responding differently to what's happening.
Right.
More honest, I would say,
Yeah.
because there's much more silence, and that's what's happening in the surroundings.
Yeah.
That's my story, anyway.
Yeah. Nice story.
Fascinating.
Oh no, thanks for sharing it, Kira.
Yeah, thanks. I'll go on mute
You're
again.
welcome.
Thanks. Thanks.
Natalie has a hand up.
Hi, Natalie.
Of course I do. Hi.
Of course you
Hi
do.
there.
Hi.
Of course I do. You know, let's just talk about loss because this is just more of a losing. There was like this something, I don't know what it was, but it was like a confirmation, always wanting a confirmation that it's okay. You know, like if I'm crying, you know, there's like looking, checking, making sure this comfort feeling of like, I need confirmation from something in here that's in here. I need confirmation from others, from my surrounding. It was like a huge job of like always trying to, and then when that doesn't seem to happen much anymore, you know, and even if it does, if I'm crying, well, I'm just crying, you know, it's as it is. And it, even a thought of what the hell am I crying for? I don't know. I mean, the crying is the confirmation enough almost. Like if it's appearing, it's appearing. I mean, it doesn't, what kind of confirmation was I ever looking for? You know, it's just so silly.
Well, yeah, well, I know exactly. Well, I'm pretty sure I know what you were looking for. Okay, what everyone's looking for, all selves are looking for, to be affirmed that I'm okay, even though I'm crying. I'm okay still, aren't I? It's really just being that little child that's crying.
It is so childish. It is so sweet.
You just want mum to say, mum turns up and mum puts her arm around you and says it's okay.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
It's okay. It's just all okay.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
So
it's beautiful.
The amazing thing is that the crying itself can just be okay.
Yeah. And the anger and the yelling and all of it, you know, that judging of why it does. I mean, it just happens. I don't, it's
Especially that,
liberated.
yeah. Well, there. I mean, that's why I'm still happy to use the word liberation, because it's liberation for all of, especially the feelings that you've been so. We were so taught, we were so conditioned, virtually all of us, that there are feelings that are good and healthy and acceptable, and there are all of these other feelings that are very unacceptable and are terrifying to feel, because I feel I will be rejected because I have these feelings. That's the crux of most suffering. So what does self do? Self represses, it hides, it pushes them away, it shuts them in a cupboard, it does everything, it denies them, endless strategies, distraction from them, to try and feel good. And the only reason that what we've called good feelings are preferable to self is because they are the acceptable ones. I'm okay because I feel this. And then self feels what is absolutely natural, like anger, like grief, like the inevitable sorrow that is always apparent in life. I mean, I'm amazed that we're not all crying all the time.
I know. I do cry a lot.
If this hits, don't be surprised if you're just crying fucking at a drop of a hat and you won't even know why. Well, there is a reason. I mean, there is.
Oh, yeah.
You've spent a lifetime of
Right.
repressing that, of not feeling it. And then if there's just slightly less energy of, I shouldn't feel that, it's been, sorrow wants to be felt. It's love. It's the most pure expression of love is grief and sorrow. And grief and sorrow is always, because this is always passing away. It's undeniable. If it is seen that life does not exist in the sense of anything continuous at all, there is no continuity. Continuity is totally illusory. Completely. Nothing continues. So everything is always being lost. But there's a massive compensation. It's always being born. It's absolutely always fresh and new. So birth and death are not two. There is no space between them. So in that sense, there really is no life. There's birth and death, and that birth and death are equally life. But there's no life in between the two. So the illusion where we all live, nearly every human being you meet is totally convinced, this utter conviction that they are living in between, in this imagined space that's between birth and death, that does not exist other than as a story, just story. And the story remains, but it can just be really undeniably obvious that it's a story and no more.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's just perfect. I mean, that's just how it is. That's how it is.
That's how it is.
That's how it is. Thanks, Tim.
Oh, thanks, Natalie. Lovely to see you.
You too.
Tim,
Who's that, Tej?
good to see you.
Cliff.
Cliff, yes.
Hi, Cliff.
I got to tell you, the first 5 minutes, I'm going, what the hell is Tim talking about today? I just like, nothing's making sense. This is nothing. What you just said in the last minute was so brilliant. It just just like, oh my God, that is just so absolutely true. There is no space between life and death. There's no space. I'm just repeating what you said. I'm not making anything new up. It's hitting to me that there's no space between existence and non-existence and being and not being.
No.
There's just none. It's just this, which you may call nothing, which I don't. I never understood the nothing part, but the just this, yeah. So
Yeah.
true. So true. Just
Yeah.
great. Thanks for that gift today.
Oh, thanks, Cliff. Especially saying that you thought, what the fuck is he on about at the beginning? But of course, when I say nothing, I'm talking about everything, Cliff.
You know, I was just going to say, I didn't want to jump in there, but I was thinking, when he's talking about nothing, he's talking about everything, isn't it?
Yes.
And I didn't want to jump in with that, but now it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So the confusion is evaporated.
Well,
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. The reason I tend to emphasize the nothing, Cliff, is because everyone's pretty convinced of everything, but they're not very convinced of nothing at all. Most people didn't. We could say the norm is the denial of nothing. That's really where most people live. Most human beings are very convinced of the reality of everything, but not the unreality.
Right, right. You know, when you if this was written and I could play back what you said, maybe put the dialogue on or whatever, the caption, and I don't know, maybe for me, and I'm wrong, correct me, but if there was a hyphen between the no and the thing, then it's just like, okay, I got that.
Right.
You know, but it's not an absence, it's an everything. But there's nothing particular. There are no things, there's just everything. There's no barrier, there's no space between.
That's it, Cliff.
Yeah.
Well, if
Anyway.
you want, then you just go on YouTube. I'll put this on YouTube, and then you just put the dialogue on, and it just all appears underneath.
There you go.
So you can have a look at that, and you can see if the computer see if the AI has got the hyphens in the right place or not. Thanks, Cliff.
Thank you.
Yelena has a hand up.
Yelena.
Yeah, hi. I was just going to say, when I was younger, and I remember specifically being like sad or whatnot, and no really reason to be, I used to listen to sad songs and it used to make me feel better. And then after a while, my mom would go in and say, well, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't feel sad because you should feel good. And that's better. And the sad songs are making you feel worse.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was like the weirdest thing because it actually made me feel better. Nobody understood, obviously. Yeah. She doesn't understand that even till this day. But it's interesting that the other day, I actually heard a scientist say that if you are sad and you listen to sad music for half an hour or 40 minutes, that actually takes out that energy faster than if you were to try to force it to be good, which is so interesting. You just want to feel whatever you feel. And I didn't care if it was bad or sad. I just wanted like more of it. I remember feeling like I wanted it more intensified, and such a clear memory. It's so interesting how that works.
Oh yeah, thanks. So yeah, that's lovely. Who doesn't love a sad song when you're sad?
Right.
But your mum was doing it out of what she out of love, because for her, just like virtually everyone else, sadness is something's wrong. So sadness is an indication of something's wrong for self. For virtually all selves, that's how sorrow, sadness is. When of course it's not.
It's a very
totally natural.
it's a very firm, like belief or whatever you want to call it, you know, and it's even when it starts to fall away, it's still kind of like at least what happens here is like, you know, it like backtracks into like the old and between the old and the others, like the what's introduced that's new, I guess, or whatever it's trying to do. It's a very interesting how it does that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And no wonder we repress the sorrow when your mum's, you know, I can hear my dad saying, now look what you've done. You've upset your mother because I'm upset. You've upset your mother. Well, I mean, it's the greatest sin of all. Upsetting your mother. I was terrified. Can't upset mother. I'm totally dependent on her. So no wonder I repressed. And of course, what upset my mother? Mostly crying and anger. Those two. And it's the same story with virtually everyone you could speak to.
Yeah, very interesting how it works. Well, thank you anyway. Thanks.
Oh, thanks, Elena. No, that's lovely. So when I was at university, I'll tell you a little sorrow story here. When I was 21, I changed course when I was at university, and I left the PE secondary teacher training to become a primary school teacher. So it was a poor decision, and I felt totally isolated and alone, and I got very depressed. But I hid it well, apart from when I was in my room, and then I would just play over and over again Diana Ross, the theme from Mahogany. Do you know where you're going to? Do you like the things that life is showing you? Where are you going to? Do you know? And sob. I can laugh about it, but wow. And yeah, that was I just had that flash of sad songs. And what a surprise, at 21, I didn't know where I was going to. And I didn't like what life was showing me either. So, of course, you tend to find songs that resonate when you're in despair. That is a beautifully melancholic song, though. I'm recommending it to you whenever you feel like crying. Diana's full of sorrow. I just get a drink. Kira?
Hiya. Tim, I have another question, and it is, this may seem a bit personal, so you don't have to answer, obviously. But I'm interested to know how your personal relationships have changed since your way of living has changed. I'm talking about, intimate relationships, because they're really quite a head fuck. And I wonder, does it get, like, how is it different?
Well, I could tell lots of stories about that, Kira. I'd be surprised. Rather than tell you my story, I mean, I can tell you if you really want, but like you say, it is very personal. And the thing is about talking about relationships, of course, they don't just include me, do they? So I'm always a little bit wary. I don't mind talking about my relationship with my mother because she's dead, but both of my ex-wives are alive, so I'm a little bit more wary. You know what I mean? Just because it is personal.
I listened to
But I'd be amazed. What I'd say is I'd be amazed. They did change dramatically, yeah. Because if you change and you're in an intimate relationship and your partner says, I don't know who you are anymore, and you reply, I'm not surprised because I don't know who I am anymore, that's going to have quite an impact on the relationship. And that is the exact words. I had that conversation. Well, it's never going to be quite the same after that, is it? Now, you might be able to, it just depends how it, yeah, I'm not saying that all relationships would change and have to end, or there would have to be quite a lot of compromise in order to maintain it, I would guess.
The battery's about to die. Sorry, I don't want to miss this. This is golden, man. I don't want you to drop out just when I'm about to hear to everlasting happiness.
Well, if you change your behavior, I mean, I'm not talking just about non-duality and just anything. If something radically changes about what you do on a day-to-day basis, and so I stopped work, and I mean that had a massive impact on relationships straight away. I said I'm not. If you're not the person, so there is this illusion. Self is very convinced that it knows another self. That's what an intimate relationship is usually based on. So we are a couple, and I know you better than anyone else, and you know me better than anyone else. Well, if it's obvious that you don't know me at all, nor could you, and I can't know you, and that becomes undeniable, and you voice that, well, the relationship is going to be, if it's not annihilated, then it's going to be radically changed. So that's what happened.
Yeah, of course. Because relationships are all about signing a contract and holding on for grim death.
Yeah.
And now what's there to hold on to?
But the whole basis of it is that I know you. I mean, there's the crux, really, that I do know you. Now, if this hits, you'll never think you could know anyone else ever again. There really aren't any others, and there is no possibility of being known by another. So they can't know you, and you can't know them. It is the absolute impossibility of that. And then,
Exactly.
I mean, I'm suggesting if you want to keep the relationship, best not mention it. That would be my advice as a marriage guidance counselor. Can you imagine me? There we go. There's a new career option for me that I hadn't thought of. Marriage guidance counselor. I'm not going to see out the week, I don't think.
You could stand outside the church every weekend and say, look, before you go in.
But I'm not. I mean,
I just want to tell you something.
Yeah. So, and of course there aren't any rules. It's not. It doesn't have to be like that. I mean, I think there are some people who are literally the self falls away, and there is no sense of that. There is that sense of emptiness and groundlessness and whatever we're going to call liberation.
It's
and they
painful.
never speak about it, and their lives don't change. Now, I know stories where that seems to be the case. That seems to be the story. I am amazed that that's ever the case. I mean, I find it really surprising because there aren't any rules at all. So when, I'm guessing, Kira, you're asking me because you've got some fears about how the relationship might go. And the truth is, of course, there is no knowing at all. So there's no need to be concerned about that, because the whole fantasy is that, okay, if this happens, then that will be the end of that, and that'll have to go, and that'll have to go. No, there aren't any rules at all. There's simply no knowing.
There's no real fear. There's no real fear. There's a kind of understanding that the thing that we're looking for from the other person is not about the other person. It's what we're trying to get from the other person. Yeah. And we already are the thing that we're trying to get from from the other person. We already are the love. We are the space. We are the peace.
Yeah.
So I had a recent relationship and it ended recently, but I realized, oh God, there was this like an nearly like energetically letting go. I could feel myself in the presence of this person, but like I could feel something in me was pulling back, like hands off, and going, wow, I have no control over this person at all.
No, but you don't have.
I'm not here to do anything. I'm here to be and let them be. And it was like, this is unconditional love.
Yeah. But it's the unconditional love is that you have no control over whether you let them go or not, though, either, you see.
Say that again?
You don't have any control. It's not that you just don't have any control over them and what they can give you and what you could give them. You don't have any control over what you've called yourself at all. So how you feel about it. So, you can't choose to let go. You can't choose to hold on. You can't choose to feel a certain way.
Yeah.
The feelings just appear or not. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of it.
And you know what the awful thing was is realizing, because it wasn't really, being love or being in that space or whatever it is, I don't know, but kind of sensing it. And sensing that the other person wasn't in that place, like there was a shut door. It was like meeting, it was like shining.
Yeah.
Even saying this, I'm kind of, it's kind of tricky to say it, because then anyway, I'll just try and say what I'm trying to say. It's like being love and knowing that it's not a shared space. It's only one way, if you know what I mean.
Right.
But unconditional love means staying open like that anyway, not shutting the doors going, ooh, I'm not going to get what I need here. Love is love. You can't stop it. But when you, I noticed staying in that place, then it was painful.
Yeah.
It's painful to be love. It is painful to be love because there's no other way to do it.
No,
It mightn't be met.
it can't be met.
It can't be met because that's all there is.
It can't be shared. I mean, I don't want to be too annihilating of relationships, but you know, if you're still dreaming of sharing this space with another, no.
No, I get that. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
There is no other.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it, what you're saying there.
The aloneness is, it can feel unbearable to self because self's so afraid of loneliness. And probably the greatest paradox of this, about this of all, is that the aloneness, the complete and utter aloneness, is the impossibility of loneliness. Because there's no one alone,
Mm-hmm.
but there's no one to share the aloneness with. Completely alone.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds dreadful. Not dreadful at all.
Yeah.
Because it is how it is. So really, I mean, what self is a denial, because self creates other selves, so that it won't be alone. And self's terrified of being alone, but there's nothing to fear because there is only alone. This is, you know, you've heard other speakers and they use the word complete and whole, and some will even still use the word oneness. And that's the aloneness. There's nothing outside. Nothing inside. Inside and outside they're not one. They're just not two. There's no inside and outside. There's no you and me. And then there's appearance of you and me. And that paradox is weirdly perfectly okay. There's all the contradictions of non-duality, really all we're speaking of is that for me, they're never okay because it has to be one or the other. Well, when one is the other, then they don't have to be one or the other. There's both and neither are not two. So is it one or the other? It's neither one nor the other. It's both one and the other. And again, you start sounding like Dr. Seuss. But I'm reading Dr. Seuss to my son all the time, so I've really got Dr. Seuss going round and round in my head. David. Oh, thanks, Kira.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. This aloneness is the only true relationship. When I need nothing from another, as we do here in this group, we need nothing from each other. And that can happen in a domestic relationship, a partnership. It can happen. And the only parameter is the not needing. the joy of being together only happens when I'm not needing something from you. And, I really appreciate everyone here that is coming to know this, that there is nothing from another that we need at all. Never. So I love being with. Sitting in silence is just as rich as talking. So it's a beauty to find another, to be with another that's not needing something from you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks.
that's it.
Thanks, David. It's lovely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, all you lovely others.
Tim?
I mean, how liberating. You were always taught not to contradict yourself, you know, take a standpoint, and that's what you're going to argue for. This couldn't give a shit about your point of view. And people still think that I'm talking about a philosophy or a point of view or a belief, or because self can only do that. And it can't stand there. Even the notion that this isn't a point of view at all is so abhorrent to self that most souls who hear this don't even hear it. It's just gobbledygook, total bullshit, which of course it is. But I can't emphasize enough the absence of truth that there could be, or the impossibility of truth, of knowing the truth, of being the truth. There's no greater liberation than that. There are no human beings more true than others. There are no true and false human beings. There's no true or false anything. And again, why not call that unconditional love? Don't have to. It's not. But it might feel like it. Well, thanks for coming, everybody. Lovely, lovely meeting. Lovely to see you all. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Darren.
Mhm.
Thanks, Tim. Thank you.
Thank
Oh,
you.
you're welcome.
Thank you,
Thanks, Tim. Thanks,
See you all.
Darren.
Good to see you, Tim.
All
Thanks a
right.
million.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you all. Thank you all.